Well, let me just explain a little bit. You were the first person who I ever interviewed in my entire interviewing career, which is like very little, right? It's two years. No, less than a year. And you were there as a friend, and I appreciate you a lot for it because it helped me realize how important this is for me and how much I need to improve because it was such a shitty podcast that
It was not shitty.
yeah, well, it was just not ready, you know. But also, you're a very accomplished individual, and I am
Thank
really
you.
impressed and I respect you a lot. So why don't you? This is your
Likewise.
chance. Let's let give us a little background. Where are you from? Um, yeah, just give me a little background. What do you want people to know about you?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me again. And honestly, it was such an honor to be on your first episode that I'm glad was not aired ever. Um, and I also really respect you, and I'm really proud that you put this together after
um,
a year of hard work. So I'm really proud of you for that.
I would say that I've been slacking, but it's out there, so I'm happy. I'm happy it's out there, and I'm also pretty pleased about it. Of It's one of those things when you have an idea and you never know when it's gonna be ready. You know, you
Yeah,
never.
but you're really passionate about it, and that shows. So I'm glad to be here
Well,
again.
thank you for that.
Of course, of course. And me, so I'm Meriem. I'm from Morocco. I left Morocco about 10 years ago to go study architecture in Barcelona for 3 years. After that, I transferred to Chicago. I was there for a study abroad and really loved the city and the US and decided to move there. And once I graduated from Chicago, it was in 2016, I moved to New York
Mhm.
and got a job in New York. You helped me get in that job in New York. And I've been there since then. Well, this year has been a bit different. Summarizing it, it's like I've been traveling quite often. I call myself Nomad. I've been taking some time to work remotely and visit some of my dearest friends all over. And here I am.
Well, so let's just start. Let's just get into it, and I want to know. I want to picture you in Morocco because I think it's very hard to do it. It's very hard to picture somebody on a country that you don't know. Did you think you had a good life growing up?
Yeah, it was. I think it was a good life. I when I was in Morocco, I never thought about somewhere else. I remember that. I remember like being in Morocco and not thinking about, oh, I'm gonna move to the US or I'm gonna move to Spain or it wasn't. I didn't even think about that. And I'm saying this because I have a little brother. He's 14 now, and he can't stop talking about how he wants to move to the US and wants to get ready and take English and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I do remember that of like just being in Morocco, accepting it with the beautiful things that happen in Morocco, but also with its flaws, and not really thinking about going anywhere else. It's like it's my country, my people, and I belong here, and that's it. I remember that. I also, sorry, go ahead. You wanted to say something.
No, I just wanted you to talk about your siblings a little bit because I think that's an important role that you have in your life. You are a firstborn. Like, were you ever worried about them in that way?
I so my sister, I really thought of it of her as my best friend because we only were 2 years and a half apart. We like played together. At some points in our lives, we were doing a lot of like competitive tennis, and we would do the trainings together. We really did everything together.
Mm-hmm.
My brother and I have 10 years of difference. So no, I'm sorry. We have 14 years of difference. He has 10 years with me. It's a bit different with him. Like I wasn't that much around when he was growing up. But with my sister, we were really close friends. At the same time, when I was going through my rebellious years of teenage, she was also my like kind of the person I fought the most
Mm.
because she was my friend and she was always around.
Right. Right.
And then I did feel that I did feel like I played somehow a role of the elder sister when I moved to Barcelona. because for me it was such a bold move, um, such a scary move and an important one. And for her, it was really easy because the road was already built. She just followed and it was
Mm.
easier for her. And she
So
would say that too.
okay, so in a way, you were the pioneer of the Sakrouhis.
I
Like
wouldn't
you, I
say
mean,
that.
but for your brother and for your sister, you basically laid down the path, which is very much, it's very true for a younger sibling to see his brother or sister, and say, oh, that's where I want to go, right? Did you ever feel pressure about being a
Yeah.
role model?
No,
No.
no, not really.
Did your parents ever tell you like, ever sit you down in a corner and be like, Miriam, you're the oldest sibling. You need to be a
No,
responsible
thank
one, and
God. Thank
no.
God they didn't, but I did feel this sense of wanting to making them proud for some reason. Like I'm obsessed with making them proud,
Mm.
and still to this day I'm battling with this because I always feel like I want to do more, like be more success. I don't know, do more competitions, win stuff, do something to make them proud. And
Mm.
I did feel that. Like my parents, my dad especially talked a lot about getting into Harvard because in Morocco we don't really know schools, we only know Harvard. So it's like the top thing. And he was like,
Right.
yeah, I want you to like study really hard and get into Harvard. But that
it's
was later on. It was like when I was in high school.
it's more of a
But I
concept.
didn't really feel the pressure. Yeah, I didn't really feel the pressure then. I guess I feel a little bit of pressure now, but it's pressure that I put on myself. But it's related with this obsession of trying to make them proud. Because I'm
Interesting.
really like a family-oriented person, and somehow like the opinions of other people I don't care, but the opinions that my parents have on me I really care about, or my siblings have. I really care about. So they didn't put that on me. They didn't put me on a corner and say, "Hey, you're the eldest sister. You should
Yeah.
do
No.
this
No.
and
No.
that and be a role model." But I put that on myself
Interesting. Just because you
in a
wanted to
way,
make your parents proud in a way. Why do you
right?
think? Why do you think you have this feeling of? Why do you think you have this need to make your parents proud? And is there any particular reason?
I don't really know exactly, but I think it could be related to. I've always had my dad as a role model because he came from a very very poor family, like in the mountains of Morocco in a marginalized area where, just to give you an idea, they didn't have any water, any electricity in the village where he was, Tamarkaz. Like seeing him, like basically getting through studying, um, is just so fascinating to me because he would tell us stories like he was gonna drop out of school when he was a kid just because he didn't have 5 dirhams, which are like 50 cents today of a
Mm-hmm.
dollar. And he couldn't buy this book that was like, he couldn't buy a book that was $1. So he didn't have 50 cents. And like, by luck, some teacher gave him 50 cents and he stayed in school. And seeing how he progressed in life and was able to like get a good job, being a professor, and then getting higher and higher, just gave me like, I don't know, like fired me up to try to
Yeah,
also success in my life because that for me is success when I watch him. So
I
I
see.
guess
So your
that all could
father,
come from that.
is a big inspiration in your life
Yeah,
because of his hard work and his
I think
perseverance.
so.
Can you tell me a story that your
That's
dad
right.
told
Yeah.
that Can you tell me a story that your dad told you one time that that you remember, that you have a clear memory of, or it affected you in some way? Can you recall?
Yeah, there's this story. I actually think it's funny when he tells it. So he was in the village in school. He would go to this school that was 5 kilometers away, and he had to walk. And in the mountain, it snowed, so he had to walk. He got really dirty because of the snow. Gets into class, and so on. And there's one day where my grandfather came to the school, and brought him some shoes. And it was the first time ever. It was a Wednesday because it was the market day, souk day in Morocco. So he brought him the shoes to the class. The teacher stopped the class, and the his my grandfather told him, "Hey, I brought you these shoes. Please try them on because I'm gonna pay them, and I need to see if it fits." So the teacher stopped the class. My dad goes, tries them on, loves them because it's the first time ever he got new shoes. Keeps them on, hugs my grandfather, and then my grandfather leaves. And I thought that the story was so like touching and so
Mm.
humbling in some sort,
Yeah.
that my dad was like, he was 12 when he got his first shoes, and then he was so excited that he got his shoes that he put small nails on the shoes so that it makes noise when he walks, so that people will see that he has shoes, like new shoes. And I was like, when I think about this story, I'm like, oh my god, look at me now, like
Yeah.
I get my own shoes if I want to. He gets his own shoes.
Right.
So this is like, or
So
like
yeah.
for example, another small thing is he would tell us that he like used to crave bananas so much because they were super expensive and he couldn't afford them. Then when he got his first salary, he ate so many bananas that now he hates them. It's true, he doesn't eat bananas anymore. But it's just like stories like this.
Yeah. So it seems
Yeah.
that your dad just seemed had to had to grind it out and make something out
Yeah,
of
he did.
himself.
He did that.
And this was in Morocco, right? Like his background is from Morocco.
Yeah, this is American.
Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
so definitely, I can see how if you, I can see how if you look at your parents and see how much they've worked for, and see all the efforts and sacrifices that they've done to you, I can see how that can fire you up to make them proud.
Exactly. Yeah.
That also puts kind of some pressure on you, though, right? To make, like you said, your father always wanted you to go to Harvard. Like many parents, when they want their children to succeed, they set out a path for them. Was it always a plan for you that you had to go to college and that you had to graduate from from university, or did you ever think you had a choice?
Um, I never really thought about it. It was, I guess, the only option. But I never thought I didn't want to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, all the people around me and in the school that I went, that was the path that they were going through. Like they were gonna go to college after finishing high school. So I don't remember having this conversation. It was just, I'm gonna go, and I wanted to go. It's not like
Right,
it
right.
didn't feel like an obligation or a path.
No, no, no. I understand. I understand.
Yeah, it just everybody was doing it, Yeah.
Were you
And the
particularly?
Harvard thing, I was gonna say the Harvard thing wasn't really like you have to go to Harvard because I wasn't thinking at that point that I will make it to the US. It's just so far. It was just so far. I didn't know English, and I never thought that I was gonna end at that point. I never thought I was gonna end up at the US. So it was just like, I know they would say always like, I know you're gonna succeed in life. I don't know how, but I know you're gonna succeed.
Okay,
And the
so
Harvard thing was just an
did you
example.
did you have a specific passion that you wanted to do when you were in Morocco? Like before you started architecture, were you passionate about anything specific?
I was passionate about a lot of things. I and I feel like I'm still that kind of person. But an important event was that in my 10th birthday, my grandfather, I had a very good relationship with him. He's my grandfather from my mom's side. He gave me a camera on my birthday, and I just felt in love with photography and then with films and cinema. I started making a lot of like videos, messing around with the computer and so on. So I was really passionate about that. And when I arrived to high school, I was really considering that either film or tennis. And then in the third spot, would architecture would be a good option as a career later on.
I
That was
see.
when on my last year of school.
So you had this passion
Yeah, so
for
I think that it
art
came.
and cinematography, and um, that somehow you got through your education, and is that how you landed on architecture?
Um, I honestly landed on architecture by elimination and by talking to a couple of people in the profession. So I like I very very like maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before having to make a decision on what career I should do for for university applications. um, I started to eliminate all the options that I did not like. And I have to say, like in my school in Spain, in Morocco, sorry, in the Spanish school I was in Morocco, we didn't have that many options in careers,
Hmm.
which in some way made it easier. Like there weren't that many options. Um, so I started eliminating all the things I didn't want, and at the end of it, it was really just between architecture or cinema. And it came through to that. I think the last week, 1 week before I had to make the decision, it was just either architecture or cinema. And I really loved both. I was more passionate about film. It was like crazy passionate about film, but at the same time I knew that I didn't want to study um, film right away. Like I didn't want to study film in Spain. When I imagined myself studying film, it was in the US, and I just in that at that point I didn't. It was not an option. It was just too far. There's no way. I don't even know how I would access a university that's in the US. Um, so I ended up going by the a bit more safe choice,
Hmm.
and I would say also something that pleased my parents' choice, which is architecture, because it was just more stable and
Right.
less risky.
Do you think that your options were limited because of the place where you were living in?
It was really more the school. It will maybe there's an indirect relation, because they wouldn't have that many like career paths in our Spanish school in Morocco, because there weren't that many students that would take a specific career path, and then they wouldn't want to have a class with two students.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just more practical. So maybe yes, indirectly, but it did not feel that way. Like when I was in high school, I never thought, oh, I have limited options. I thought I didn't even think about it. It was just like, okay, these are the options I have. And when I think back to it, like at it, it's probably good. It's made it easier to choose. There were three
Gotcha.
main paths. It was either biology or technology or economics. So those are the three paths. I took the technology path.
But how did you feel about your choice? Like you picked architecture. How do you feel about it?
I was really happy about it. I remember telling my parents when I made the choice. With them, they did help me making the choice of architecture, and it's true that they did play a small role, but as a role in it. Um, I told them that I was going to do architecture and then I was going to do film. It was like my goal since the beginning. And I
Hmm.
said, like,
Why
I talked
though?
to them, and
Like why did you want to do these things?
honestly, I thought at that time, and I still think that, I thought that they were related. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I really liked both. And uh, I felt like it would be good to have a basis of something that's stable. So I knew that if I became an architect,
Hmm.
it would be a stable life. It would be like if I ever felt on when I became a filmmaker, and I did some movie that didn't work and ended up being broke, I would always have my architecture diploma as a safety net
As a
to get
backup.
back to my feet.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
So I
that's
decided to do that, to start with my backup.
right. I
And
think
then,
that's a
and
very
honestly,
mature
I have to say
decision
one
though.
thing. I have to say one thing to put this decision in context, which is at that point, I still thought I was going to study in Morocco. And I think that's a very important thing to say because I did not want to study cinema in Morocco. I was 17. I had a little brother that was 4 years old, and I felt a lot of guilt on leaving him. That's how it felt. So I applied actually and got in school in Rabat, the capital of Morocco, and I was gonna go to school there. I even paid to go to school there, and decided last minute to go to Barcelona, which I'm really happy I did. But
That's kind of a hard decision to leave your family, to leave your little brother and your little sister. You said it was a last minute decision, but what was going through your head?
I'm not really sure, honestly. I do a lot of impulsive decisions like this, and I still do. It usually works out. And
What
I
I just think that means that
thankfully,
there's no wrong
thankfully,
choice. If it would have worked
maybe.
out either way.
Uh,
But yeah,
I
continue.
just felt like so yeah, so I went, I did the interview, I got into school in Rabat in Morocco, and then it was summer. We went on a vacation with my family in the north of Morocco. It was an 8-hour drive from our home, and we were there at the hotel, and I received an email that I got accepted into like the Barcelona school and like a Madrid school, and I don't know why. Like I have no idea why, but I just got this impulse of like I have to go to Barcelona. Staying in Morocco is just the easier road to take, and it's not gonna get me very far. I should go and like I don't know, just experience the unknown and learn new stuff. And it was a very hard and scary decision for me because I was so used to be dependent on my parents. Like everything I do was with them, through them, thanks to them, and that just felt so bold at that time.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was a
How
very
old were you?
impulsive decision. I was 17 then.
That's pretty young. Pretty young.
Yeah. But I remember my mom was pissed when I told them I was gonna go to Barcelona. She was like, "No, you already made your decision. All
Oh,
your
really?
paperwork is back home, and we have to drive 8 hours. We have to leave this hotel, drive 8 hours." It was our first day at that trip. It was a 1 week trip, first day. My dad was so excited, and I was like, "There's no going back." I was like, "That's it. I
Yeah.
decided I wanted to study in Barcelona." But
Before we move from your upbringing, something that you mentioned is that you also traveled a lot and you moved around a lot, and I think this kind of influenced your decision making into thinking that traveling is actually a positive experience, right? Because that was the case for me at least. When I was growing up, my mom worked for UNICEF and we traveled a lot. We moved around every 4 years, right? And the first time it was gut wrenching. Like I had to leave my dad, and it was awful. It was awful. My friends all were left behind me. I had to start a new life when I was 12 years old, and it's like a new school, new culture. People were speaking weird. Like I was from Ecuador. I went to Argentina, and it's just like nobody could understand me. I would say something that I thought was normal, and people would repeat it in a way that sounds super weird. So there's a ton of factors in traveling and growing up, moving around, that I think are very positive to your upbringing, right? Tell me about your experience.
I can absolutely relate to that actually. Um, my dad had to like change jobs quite often. So I mentioned that at the beginning was really poor, became a professor, and then he kept going and going. And with a lot of hard work, he got into becoming part of the Moroccan government. So we had to move every time he got appointed to a new job or mission or
No questions
however we
asked.
can call it. Yes, exactly. And it's like you. I was eight first time we moved, then I was 12. Um, and it's just it was not a it was not a nice experience. I remember it being a very heartbreaking experience. Um, like you would have your friends and I don't know, your like your city set up, your house, everything, and then you have to move. And sometimes it happened through the year, like through the school year. You just had to leave. And I remember my first two schools I went in, it was okay. I was young and it was okay. And I made new friends and it was totally fine. But I remember the last school, so here in Casablanca, it was really hard. I got bullied a lot because I was like coming from another city, and it was harder to make friends, and it was just not very enjoyable as an experience
Mm.
to keep moving.
Yeah.
But I think it did teach me how to like adapt and how to just like try to interact with new people anyway.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if I mean, definitely opened my horizons to having a broader perspective about the world, you know. When I think
Exactly.
that when, like you were describing before, you when we started, when you were little, you know, when I was growing up in Ecuador, I never thought like, oh, I'm gonna go to the States and gonna study there and do architecture, and yeah, I'm gonna have a life there. You know, like growing up, growing up when I was little in Ecuador, I remember seeing my life in Ecuador. You know, like my future
Yeah,
life
me
was
too,
in Ecuador.
exactly.
You never really pictured
And it
it
was
or
totally
imagined
fine.
it. Yeah, and it was fine. Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
the status quo. It was what everybody was doing. Um, but as soon as I moved, that kind of changed everything. It's like, oh wait, there's this other places that are super weird that like just eat meat, you know, like it's crazy stuff. Like, and and it gave me a positive outlook, you know, to traveling and to go, you know, living my life like in a different way, which I think is
Right.
kind of reflected in the way that you live your life, even, you know, making that decision to go to Barcelona, and then making the decision to go to Chicago. So let's get into that. Let's get into you being into in architecture, in school. How is that experience?
I I loved it. I absolutely loved it. When I was in Barcelona, I first of all, it was an amazing just city that I picked to study architecture and live in. I enjoyed it so much, and like the architecture in the city was also kind of a school to me. Um, it was, I remember it being really tough, but I always like to work anyway, so it's okay. But I remember it being really hard and not sleeping much. Part. On the other hand, meeting new people, like seeing new places, being alone and independent for the first time was absolutely amazing. Like at the beginning, it was scary, and I remember I was so scared to get into a train because I was so silly. I like thought that if I missed my stop for some reason, there was this big drama and I won't be able to come back. I don't know what I had on my head, but I like it was the first time I was taking a subway in my life. Um, but after that, I saw like how easy you can meet new people, make friends, and like go out, and I don't know. It was just an
I
amazing
mean, yes,
experience. And
Barcelona is
also,
an awesome city too. Barcelona is an amazing
yes,
city.
and exactly. And then seeing so many people obsessed and passionate about architecture was amazing because it was the first time I was seeing people. Because in school, people don't really care. Not that many people care, but like in the architecture school I could see some kids, not everybody, but some kids really cared about what they were studying, and it was so nice. And like
You decided to move to Chicago, and that's part of that was part of the program that you were into. How did that came about?
not really, it was also an impulsive decision. um after after 3 years in Barcelona, I just felt like, and in the school I just felt like I kind of knew it. Like it wasn't that exciting anymore. Like it was good and I loved the city and I still love the city. And but like even in the school, like I just felt like I wasn't learning that much anymore,
Mm.
and that everything that was happening, and I would say it's more, it's it's a mix of both school and the city. Everything that was happening, I could predict, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I wasn't the only one saying that. I like at that point, it was through my third year, I started feeling like, this is getting a bit repetitive.
Right.
Like the studios are a bit repetitive, and like although I have amazing professors, well, some of them amazing, others not that great, but still it's becoming something I can predict, and it's not exciting me anymore that much.
Yeah, that's
Um,
yeah. I feel like that comes from you moving around a lot and you being like, yeah,
maybe,
this is kind of like getting boring. I know what's gonna happen. Like I know who's coming to
yeah.
class, and it's weird. It's the weird feeling that you get when you're like
The
sitting down for
three
too
year
long,
thing.
almost. You know. But
Yeah, exactly.
also there's this. I mean,
It almost like felt like it got easier. Like at the beginning, everything was harder and everything was unexpected and unknown. And at that point, I felt like it was easy, kind of thing. Um,
hmm,
Also, I would say there's one thing, which is when I was in Barcelona, I did a trip to New York, and it was the first time I went to the States. It was in 2012, February 2012, and I loved it. And it was like I thought it was like in the movies, and I was so like wowed by everything. It was the first and I guess last time that I loved Times Square. I was like, oh my god, I love this so much. And that really impacted me. And also, it impacted me because I didn't understand that well what people were saying because my English was really bad. And when I came back from the trip, I was like, I need to take English classes and I need to start learning English. But that I am sure it impacted me.
well, the way that you describe why you decide to go to Chicago makes me feel like, I'm gonna make the gaming analogy because I play a lot of video games, but it makes me feel like, you know, you're you're basically on level one, right? And at the beginning, it's just really fucking hard, and but then you either acquire skills or like you become stronger or whatever, and all of a sudden that level that was like really really hard becomes super easy, and you're like, oh, I'm just like racing through this thing, like what the fuck am I doing in this place anyways, so in order for you to like basically challenge yourself, you're like, let me just throw another wrench into the machine and like see what happens, So you figured it out at some point. You figured what you had to do, and you were like, this is too easy. Let's move on. Let's fucking go to another place, a new city, and let's try it out. And it's not like you pick like you spoke French at the time, right?
Yes, yeah, we speak French in Morocco, so it was, yeah, I already had that.
So you could have picked France to like go, or a place that that's more familiar to you or something. But no, you wanted the challenge. You were like, I need to learn English anyways, and and it's like it's kind of
Yes, for some
itching for
reason,
you.
I've always wanted something I did. Yes, for some reason, I always wanted something I didn't know. Um, and France, I could have picked France for like at the first place when I decided to go to Spain to study, but I decided to go to Spain because I had already visited Paris and in general France so much with my family that it felt like I knew it. So I knew part of it.
Right.
So I wanted a challenge, and I didn't remember being in Barcelona. I
How
was
was your
a baby
Spanish
when
when you
I
went
went there.
there? Like,
It was pretty good.
it was okay? Okay. Like, you
Yeah,
knew
it was
it.
pretty good.
You were confident with it.
Yes, I mean all my classes in school in Morocco were in Spanish, all but Arabic. We only had that course that
Oh, I
was
see.
in
I
Arabic.
see.
But
Interesting.
yeah, it was easy. Yeah.
Hmm. Wow. I mean, Miriam, that's a kind of crazy story. I mean, think about it, because you start from Morocco, right? From a dad who basically made himself, who inspired you to just to inspire you to make him proud, but at the same time to fuel your success, right? And then you start moving around, which makes you gain that perspective of like, oh shit, there's places that I don't know that are fucking amazing, you know and
That's
And
literally how I felt when I saw New York
you know,
for the first time.
and it's like, and that unknown, like that positive experience of the unknown has fueled your kind of adventure. You know, you just want to constantly be surprised. And in a way, I feel that that is your life. That is your life. It's full of surprises because I know you, and I know you, and once you graduated, I was super happy to give you a recommendation and to just, you know, help you get a job. Um, so tell us about your experience when you graduated. How do you feel about architecture once you're out there?
So once I started working,
Yeah, how do you feel about your profession? You graduated, you know, it's an exciting time for a lot of people. Um, you graduate, you know, you become part of, you know, now you're actually an adult. Now you have the tools to make, you know, to live on your own and to get a job, and it's an exciting time. How are you feeling about it?
it is, yeah. It was great as well. I had spent 3 years in Chicago by then. So when I went for study abroad, I decided to transfer and stayed. And after the 3 years in Chicago, I had the same feeling that I had in Barcelona 3 years prior. So I also felt like, okay, and also for practical reasons, I felt like I had a 1 year visa, an OPT, which is a 1 year visa that they give us to work after we graduate. And I thought, okay, I spent 3 years in Chicago. This might be my last year in the US for now. So I'm gonna go somewhere else. And I immediately decided to go to New York. It was also impulsive, and I remember when I took the decision, I first thought of you because of a conversation we had when I like randomly met you at the train in Chicago while you were going interviewing. And I was like, oh, that guy had his shit together, and he knew what he was doing. So I'm gonna
Which
reach
is
out to
completely
him
untrue, by the way. Did not have my shit together.
because you're like you looked so prepared, like you had
Yeah.
a full suit on, and you were like, I have this shit together, and like I know what to do, and IDP hours and so on. And I was like, okay, great, I'm gonna just ask him.
Yeah. No,
Lucky.
to me that story is one of those moments that it's like, I don't know what were you doing that day, right? But it's one of those moments where you could have been like in bed and been like, "Oh, I think today I'm just gonna stay home," you know, and
It's
that
true.
interaction would have never happened, right? And
It's so
without that
true.
interaction, you would have never contacted me to help you get a job in New York, and I would have never, you know, helped you out.
And it's true, that was one of the lucky moments. Like there's always these like small lucky moments I had through my life, and that was one of them. Definitely.
It's kind of crazy. I think it's kind of super coincidental and crazy. And now we have a great friendship because of it.
Yeah, it's true.
um, if I'm starting to jump ahead a little bit on describing how you feel about it, because this is about the time when we had that podcast, right? When we were like, "Fuck, what are like, am I doing something that I really want to do right now?" And that's when I was like, you know what, Mariam, maybe we should talk about it, you know, and we
Yes,
kind of talked about
exactly.
it in in the first podcast, but we described it as the quarter life crisis, right? Meaning like you're out of school, you are 25 or whatever, around 25, and you realize that maybe your job is not giving you the meaning that you want. And it's not letting you exert your creative efforts or your creative energies in the manner that you thought you would. So let's jump into that. How did that came about? Like, how are you feeling about your job, and why did you start feeling like that?
So to put it in context, that was three years into being in New York. So I always had that 3 year for some reason timeline. It was last year, and I I remember today, just by coincidence, today I found this. My brother was and I were putting a frame together, of all the postcards I've been sending him through the years.
Mhm.
And the first one I sent him in New York was saying how excited and like unbelievably happy I was because I got a job in Wall Street and like I was gonna work in an architecture firm. And
Mhm.
now it's been 4 years and I'm still in the same company. And 3 years in, I knew that I was treated really well in the company, and but I was just not fulfilled. I like whatever made me happy before that is not making me happy anymore. And it's the same thing. It's like everything is everything is the same. I don't feel the excitement anymore. I can predict what's gonna happen. Is this really what I want in my life? And how far am I gonna go if I just stay with this and
Mhm.
I'm just doing this? Um, so that's when we had the talk. And honestly, I was trying to figure it out and going all places and not knowing if I should just change jobs or do something else or I don't know, consider going back home maybe. Or I just didn't know what to do with my
Yeah.
life. And
Very anxious moment for me as well.
yeah, it was.
That's what I
Yeah,
was.
I
That's when
remember
I
we
was
were
like,
in the
dude,
same.
maybe I need to start a podcast. I was like, and then the other thoughts came, and it's like, Gabo, stop fucking kidding yourself. You're gonna start a podcast.
Yeah,
It was just
well,
such a big thing for me at the time. But did you
but
have
it's
any?
good because you already knew what you wanted.
I mean, I
Like
still
you
don't know.
knew.
I still don't know. I'm just doing it. I'm just doing it. I'm just saying fuck it.
It's
But
good. I'm glad.
but
I knew I wasn't happy, but I didn't know what to do to be happy. So I started like just searching for things that I thought would make me happy. I remember I applied to Google, and I was 100% sure that's what I wanted. I applied to a grant in Harvard, like a travel grant to do some research. I applied to all these different things, but at the end of the day, it wasn't really architecture. Although, like, I was also considering going to other architecture firms. Um, and then, like, we were talking about lucky moments before. I always feel like at some point in my life, I've met like some people that have pushed me forward. And that happened to me in high school with like a teacher that was telling me you should definitely like he took me and he was like you should go study abroad because if you stay in Morocco you're not going to advance. That happened to me in college, in Barcelona. That happened to me again in Chicago and in New York last year. Well, it was that moment. um, a former worker, she my former boss and now my friend Mar, who you know, she helped me kind of like just realize that film is the thing I'm missing. And for some reason, like I just had like forgot about it, or I mean, it's been there, but I was just not seeing it, kind of thing. Like as I said, my plan was to do architecture and then do film. So I guess I had it in my head, but it just disappeared at some point. Although I was doing videos here and there, and even at my work, in the architecture company, I was doing some videos as well. But I don't know why I just forgot about it and I was so confused. And she just like told me, okay, Meriem, like leave your job right now, just for a few, an hour or two, take the ferry to IKEA and think about what you want to do in the future. Think what you really want, like what will fulfill you. And I took the boat. It was crazy, but I did follow her advice. I took the boat to IKEA. I sat down on Fairway Market in Red Hook, and I started thinking. And at that, she didn't tell me you should do film or anything. She just told me to take the boat and think of what you want to do. And film just came like immediately. And I just like since then I've been obsessed with it and with doing what I really care about, but
hmm.
pursuing film since that day. But it's just like so magical and so lucky. I felt.
Wow. I mean, that that story is kind of crazy because we're talking about making a life decision, right? And sometimes these decisions come, like you said, um, sometimes these decisions come out of the nowhere. Sometimes it's like I just decided to do architecture out of the blue. It's like I was looking for things to do, and all of a sudden, my mom was like, "What about architecture?" And just a light popped in my head, and I was like, "Oh, architecture." And then my entire fucking body and emotions decided to love architecture because for some reason my mom said, "What about architecture?" Right? But this one seems to be a very, very defining moment because you knew it was that you had to make a decision. Isn't it crazy that you could have done that? You could have actually thought about everything without taking that moment, but you actually needed that to like get out of your routine and get your head out of that so that you can actually examine what you wanted to do in your life. How do you end up including this film passion into your life? That's, right now it's full of work, full of, like all these logistics. It's like how do you become the freelance, you know, the freelancer that you are right now, or in my opinion that you are right now? Like
I
from
think
from
at that
there.
point,
Mm-hmm.
from that point, I just started. I just like started writing short scripts to do a short film. Um, and Mar helped me a couple of times in that too. And then I finally decided to like shoot this one with my roommate Mario, um, and gather the other friends that were my actors, and that was the first short film. I've done others in the past, but very short, and didn't invest that much effort on them. But in that one is the first time I invested some of my money that I had saved, and I invested a lot of time writing the script and trying to organize everything. You were one of the extras in the film,
Of course.
and yes, thank you. Um, and that was really exciting. That was very shortly after this ferry ride to Red Hook. So I just started to do it in the side, do it in the weekends. I did it after work hours, and the nice thing about me finding out what I wanted to do and what's been missing is that I started enjoying my work more at my firm, and like little by little, I started kind of leaning towards a certain type of projects. Like I started leaning towards more visualization on my work rather than doing like construction administration or things that didn't resonate with me that much. And I started doing videos for my work, and everything started to align once I found out. I realized what my passion has been all this time.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think that's really lucky. Um, I think you have been extremely
I think
lucky
so
in that
too.
sense. That
Yeah,
um,
I think so too.
and but also it's a test of your hard work because I think I was in the same company that you were, and at some point the company was doing really bad, and um, they were cutting jobs, and I was one of those personnel that got cut, but you stayed in the company, and obviously I moved on, but even though you weren't enjoying what you were doing, I think in my opinion it's a testament of your hard work that you stayed there, right? It's a testament of how
Thank you.
valuable uh you how much value you can bring to them. And when you see somebody that is capable and they want to do something, then I think that you give them that chance. um but what amazes me is that you, like, we literally started that conversation about, like, what are we going to do, and I'm literally, while I'm figuring out this podcast, you're like fucking going 100 miles an hour on this shit, and you're like, oh, I'm doing this competition this side, and then like, oh, I'm starting this other thing on the other way, and it's like, man, can you fucking relax? Like, what are you doing? Talk to me about, like, why do you think you work so hard? Why do you think you like? I mean, I can hear it from what we were talking about before, is that you're always looking for this new challenge in this and the unknown, basically, right? You're always trying to
Yeah.
clarify the unknown. And but there's something about you though that I feel that you're just passionate about your work. So talk to me about your work process, and why do you think you work so hard? Which is not a bad thing at all.
I think I just love doing things. Like, I'm just not the kind of person to sit and not do anything, or like binge watch a TV show and not feel bad about it. I would feel so terrible. I would do it sometimes, but I just like the dynamics and moving and doing new things. And so I think for me, like, what describes my work ethic is just passion. I just like get obsessed with something,
Hmm.
with
Yeah.
projects. And
To me, that's the
Mhm.
kind of thing that I call gaming, right? It's not computer gaming, obviously, but it's you're immersed in your world so much, you know. It might be
Mhm.
it might be a digital world, you know. For all film is the fucking
Right,
story world, right? You like people
it is.
it it's not reality, and you're in this world so much, and you're in there because you're fucking playing, you know. You're not working. You're not really like thinking like, oh, when am I gonna get out of this? You're so fucking into it that to you it's like play. To you it's like this is how I have a good time, you know. And that's one of the things that amazes me about you, because like I think everybody has these passions, or like we think that we have these passions, but you know one of the things that I realize is that passions aren't things that we think we love. you know it's not like I think I'm passionate about this, right? It's passions are things that we fucking do. We do them. If you're not doing it, it's not your passion.
Compliment.
I think it's kind of crazy. I mean, I definitely haven't met anybody that has that determination to just do it, to just do things, as much as I've seen it in you. For me, it's really interesting to see, when I started the idea of the podcast, and when you started the idea of filmmaking, and just see how far you've come. Obviously, there are totally different paths, but just to see how much effort and work you put into the things that you love makes me want to put effort in things that you love. I
Thank
want to
you.
move on
I hope so.
to this idea of you becoming a nomad. The way that you described it to me is that you wanted to be traveling, keep moving around, and not have one of the aspects that you didn't like about your job was that you were almost like stuck to one place, and that you envision this lifestyle where you can move around, travel, still do what you do, but just do it remotely and do it from wherever you want it to be. And I think that's it's a very, I don't want to say progressive, because progressive is kind of linked to political, but that's a very nuance perspective, right? People are used to this idea that an office space is, like where you're supposed to go, and then you're 9 to 5, but you very much want to break these things. And I appreciate you because you're setting a precedent, right? A precedent for people to follow. Right? Tell me about it. How did the idea came up? Why did you decide to become a nomad?
I wasn't sure. Like, when I decided, okay, I want to do film, I started questioning if I should move to LA. I seriously considered it, and we have an office there, and almost moved there, but then decided no, it's not really right for me. And then I decided, okay, why can't I just like try other places, not just one place, just try other places and see how it goes. So it's also an impulsive idea. I remember it came to me, and I told some friends, and they were like, "You're out of your mind. They're never gonna accept you doing this." So I had to do it in a transition manner with my office. At the beginning, I worked from home, being in New York, and show them that I could be as efficient or more efficient. Um, and then I was able to travel. And also at that time, it's been 10 years since I was out of Morocco and out of seeing my family and my friends. I had a very good friends from high school that I still had was keeping in touch with, and my friends from Barcelona I wasn't visiting. So I really wanted to have time to go visit my friends, but still be able to work. Uh, so that's how it went. And since I also knew, so I knew that I was not happy at that time, and I didn't know what the answer was, but I knew that I wanted to try something different. And it's funny because since I've been traveling and going other places, I've been liking and loving and missing New York more and more, which has never happened before with any other city.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but I'm really enjoying this nomad or freelance. Not really freelance, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
No, I know. I know. You are free in a way. Much freer than I would say. You know, people that are stuck in 9 to 5 jobs. Um, but I think in a way it's because you discovered your process, right? Your process of working, and that's something that um, once you discover it and you fall in love with it, then you can keep doing it. And it's not about where you are or exact. It's not about work. It becomes more about creation. It's about being in that creative mindset and being in that creative process. That it's exciting, right?
It's true.
Um,
And also, honestly, I life is too short. And I was telling myself this, and I was thinking, okay, what do I really like to do? I should do what I really like to do, and I should visit the people I really care about because life is too short.
hmm,
So I think that's also part of it.
yeah. I'm starting to thinking that we should kind of wrap this up. What do you think? Like all these things
So,
that you're doing, right? There's gotta be an
right.
there's gotta be like what is the goal? What is the fundamental objective? Like it for the sake of this podcast,
Okay.
what is the game that you're playing?
My objective or my goal has always been to impact people, like to make them feel something, like feel emotion. And I think that it doesn't have to be with architecture, but it could be. It could be a building. Um, it could be a film that impacts them. It could be conversations like the one we had on the train and impacted me. Um, it could be the small things or the big things, but for me, it's that it's impacting people, making them feel something, and I really hope to do it as a filmmaker. So for me, I'm pursuing that path to becoming a filmmaker. And that's what I'm trying to do
Mm.
with the goal of impacting people. Always, I felt a couple of years ago the pressure of my parents allowed me to have a good education, and I ended up going to Spain and ended up going to the US. I should give back to Morocco. And I always thought that meant I had to live in Morocco and like come back to Morocco and do things in Morocco. But I realized that it's not true. I'm There's other ways to give back, like, by impacting Morocco from far. And for me, I see it as more a more powerful way to do so. And I just have more room to grow outside of it and impacting it from far than being in it. I wouldn't
Mm.
have that many chances to grow.
I relate more to when you say that you want to make people feel something, right?
Yes,
And
that's what I mean. Yeah.
and because filmmaking is a way to evoke people's emotions. That's a very simple and like pure objective. Like make people feel stuff, make people feel emotions.
With film.
If I think about it, it's kind of deep actually, because it is kind of sad if you go through the world without feeling anything. And if you're there
Yeah,
to make us feel
it's true.
something, I think that would be a better world. you
I
know.
think so too.
Um Anyways, Miriam, thank you so much for doing this. Of course, this has been a little bit of a challenge for me just because it's been on the video conference. But during these times, I think it's completely necessary, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been awesome though, cause I really appreciate you, and I think you're awesome, and I really respect your hard work and all the things that you've accomplished in your short little life. That that you inspire me to keep working hard, and when I hear you say things when I hear you talk about your passions, it really fires me up, and I hope it does other people too.
Likewise.
Um,
I really appreciate it too. I appreciate you too, and I'm really really happy. I got so happy when I saw that you launched it, your podcast. So again, I'm really proud of you. I'm very excited to see where this thing is going because I know it's gonna go far.
well, I hope it goes far. I sometimes, sometimes I think that I'm tackling this thing that it's impossible. Did you ever get the feeling?
Sometimes, yeah.
Like a lot of the times I find myself editing things and posting things, and then at the end of the day I'm like, am I really trying this for reals? you know this feels like I'm fucking
But I think then that's exciting.
this feels
That's
like
the
I'm playing
unknown.
everybody. It feels like, oh, like this guy's just like gonna like trick everybody into thinking that he's gonna do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel
It's
like it's a fraud all the time.
yeah, definitely imposter
I have
syndrome.
the imposter syndrome all the
Yeah.
all the time.
I,
Yeah.
all right, Miriam. I had a blast. And is there any way that where can people find you? How can people get to you if they want to look for 33M? Just give us some plugs that people can use to find you or
Oh,
look
sure.
for your work.
So 30 for 33M, it would be our Instagram page at 33M, and that's it. Just write it down. And then for my personal is at Meriem Sak, so SAK, Meriem SAK.
At Meriem Sak on Instagram too.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think that's the easiest way.
that's
There's
the
links
easiest
there
one.
to the website and so on.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome, awesome. Well, Miriam,
thank you.
it's been a pleasure, and
Likewise.
and for those who are listening, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Player versus Life podcast. This has been a blast, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.